We begin 65 million years ago with a narrator telling the true story of how the meteorite that decimated the dinosaurs crashed into the Earth. The impact being so powerful, it split the world into two parallel dimensions. Some dinosaurs survived the impact and were whisked away into this new dimension, evolving into a human-like race that would go on to found the dystopian city of Dinohattan. The History Channel told me these events are all true, by the way. Fast forward to 1973 Brooklyn in the dimension dominated by mammals. A panicked hooded woman runs to the steps of a Catholic orphanage, leaving behind a large egg and a mysterious rock. So she's ambushed by some random guy in a tunnel, rocks fall on her and she dies? Am I in the right theater? This is the Mario movie, right?
Shut the fuck up!
Okay, wait, what could be inside this egg? Is it Yoshi?
What?
This is the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie, and for the sake of the rest of the video, I won't pronounce it that way. Aww. How did we get this weird dystopian version of the Super Mario series on the big screen though? What was Nintendo's role in all of this, and what are some of the things this movie got right? I'm the Mentalk, and I'll be your guide through not only the wacky plot of this film, but also the wild events that led up to the creation of this movie. So let's get going. After dealing with the whiplash of two different openings, we're finally introduced to the Mario brothers, Mario and Luigi, broke plumbers living in modern day Brooklyn, or 1993 Brooklyn in this case. They rush out to snag a plumbing job only to find out that their biggest rival, Scapelli Construction Company, is already at the scene. It's implied that this mafia-run business is what's causing the Mario brothers to lose their potential plumbing jobs. We then cut to a Scapelli construction site, which has been placed on pause by NYU due to a potential archaeological find in the bedrock. Enter Daisy.
Yo, this is Princess Daisy.
The student in charge at the dig site. Boss Scapelli himself approaches Daisy to threaten her in finishing up the investigation because he has a construction site to finish. I will say Gianni Russo does a great job at making Scapelli look pretty sleazy here.
Keep everyone digging till I get back.
Ugh. So while Daisy tracks down a payphone to contact the university about all this, the Mario Brothers van breaks down at the same spot. And check this out, this sign says Mr. Video. This is one of the names Miyamoto originally considered for Mario. I haven't seen too many people that caught that Easter egg, so I figured I'd mention it. Because this is the Mentalk channel, I had to investigate further. Mr. Video 3 was an actual video store in Brooklyn Heights at the time this movie was filmed. The sign even says full line of Nintendo products. So was it influenced by Mario's old name? Maybe this isn't an Easter egg, but a coincidence. Okay, let me not get too distracted here. We're also introduced to Spike and Iggy in this scene, who are stalking Daisy to kidnap her, but we'll also get to them a little later. Daisy and Luigi meet for the very first time, with Luigi quickly relinquishing the payphone over to her, smitten with her beauty. And in this scene, Luigi's slacking on his game, but good old Mario manages to get his brother over the hump, and Daisy agrees to join them for dinner later that night. And this dinner turns out to be a double date. Mario brings a lady friend named Daniela. When I rewatched this scene, it took them forever to say this character's name, and the whole time I was hoping it was Pauline, but maybe that fruit was hanging too low for them to take. And I've noticed online a lot of people have said that in a script or background materials, her full name is listed as Daniela Pauline Verducci, which I've seen zero proof of. I've checked every script that's available and nobody has her middle name listed as Pauline. One of the scripts has her surname listed as Verducci since Mario proposes to her in that script, but no sign of her name being referenced as Pauline anywhere. And I see this referenced on a few wikis, even the Super Mario Bros. Archive site. Not one of these places has a source. If anybody knows where I can find the script where her name's listed as Pauline, please let me know. And then I'll pin your comment to this video because I want to see this gap closed. So with our heroes fully introduced, let's take a second to talk about the actors here. Mario is played by the late Bob Hoskins, who you may also know as Detective Eddie Valiant from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I'm sorry I yanked your ears.
All the time you yanked my ear?
And I had no clue he was British after all these years until I started writing this script. Go figure. Anyway, Hoskins wasn't a huge fan of the original script and wanted to avoid being typecast after he already was involved in family films like Roger Rabbit and Hook. But the producer, Roland Jaffe, kept sending him script revisions until Hoskins eventually agreed to take the role. Mentalk from the future here, it's pronounced Roland Jaffe, but I'm gonna say Jaffe for the rest of this video, so I hope you would bear with me on that. Thanks, bye. Interestingly enough, Dustin Hoffman originally wanted the role of Mario, but the team didn't think he was a very good fit. Danny DeVito was offered the role as well, but he turned them down for other projects. And I'd really love to peer into the universe where he took that offer. A young John Leguizamo was cast to play the role of Luigi, and despite the negative response this movie got from audiences, it would still help Leguizamo kick off his acting career. Samantha Mathis plays Daisy in this film, and fun fact, she ended up dating Leguizamo while they worked together. It didn't last very long, but still interesting to note. Okay, after the date and a ton of other exposition and setup, Iggy and Spike managed to kidnap Daisy and drag her through an interdimensional portal found in the tunnels of the dig site, but not before Luigi gets his hands on her necklace. After some reluctance, the Mario Brothers jump into the rocks after her, finding themselves in the cyberpunk dystopia Dinohattan.
Where are we?
I don't know, maybe we got knocked unconscious for 100 years and we woke up in Manhattan of the future.
Maybe the Bronx is today. No wonder they tell you never to come up here.
Mario, I got a feeling. We're not in Brooklyn no more.
There is way too much setup in this movie. You have 2 flashbacks, the introductions of Mario and Luigi, the whole Scapelli plotline, Daisy and the dig site, Spike and Iggy stalking Daisy. Then there's the love story between Luigi and Daisy. Daniela getting kidnapped along with other women in Brooklyn, which I didn't mention before, by the way. And all of this is meant to give reason to send Mario and Luigi into another world. I'm not a film buff, but speaking as a layperson, this is a lot to take in, just to have them spend most of the movie in a completely different dimension. So with the brothers still chasing after Daisy, we're introduced to Dinohattan, which if you guys didn't get the pun before, Dinohattan, Manhattan. And all the Dinohattan scenes are just sheer chaos. These moments are packed with a staggering amount of extras and are just so busy and distracting. They managed to take the enigma that is the streets of New York and amplify it to fit the uncomfortable vibe of the situation, while the gap between Daisy and the Mario Brothers continues to widen. We do see some cool Easter eggs on some of these establishments though, like Bullet Bill's and Boom Boom Bar, which reference enemies from the game. So the creators of this film based this world entirely on Dinosaur Land from Super Mario World, even though a lot of it looks nothing like what you would see in game. But the set does ooze with some style. I have to give the movie props for this, and just the amount of extras in the background doing the craziest shit.
Cancelled. Passengers transferred.
Cue the introduction of President Koopa, the ruler of Dinohattan, who ousted the previous leader and turned him into a fungus. Played by Dennis Hopper, this guy is one of the highlights of this movie. He's the quintessential 90s villain, but extremely goofy at the same time. It's almost charming. The original concepts for Koopa made him much closer to his game counterpart, with their original vision gearing around being played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I guess this is the version we would have seen if they stuck to the original script. Even down to Toad, the Goombas, and other inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom, it looks like what they were going for closely resembled the games, and just got scrapped again and again until we ended up here. So Mr. Schwarzenegger, if you ever watch this, just rock this costume one time for Halloween. Okay, back to Dennis Hopper's Koopa. We find out that he needs both Daisy and her rock necklace so he can merge their miserable dead dimension with the parallel world, so dinosaurs can rule and thrive again. It turns out that the rock is a piece of the original meteorite that struck the Earth 65 million years ago. So yeah, magic. From here on, the movie is mainly Mario and Luigi attempting to survive and navigate Dinohattan to save Daisy. To add insult to injury, her necklace, which Luigi managed to grab, is stolen along the way. Cut to a scene where the two are being detained along with a street musician named Toad, who is guilty of singing anti-Koopa songs.
Get a great big stupa! All because of the evil.
This is the movie's version of Toad. They just gave a guy a guitar and called him Toad. I remember how much this crushed me as a child. By the way, the actor is named Mojo Nixon, and he has a wonderful YouTube channel where he's still posting songs to this day, so if this video blows up, please go show him some love. So they're all sent to a police station, which leads to this famous scene.
Mario.
Last name.
Mario.
Okay, what's your name?
Luigi.
Luigi?
No, Luigi Mario.
But there's just so much going on in the background of this one scene, and I don't know if I like it or hate it. It's still hard to tell. Anyway, Koopa poses as the lawyer for the Mario Brothers, attempting to trick them into revealing where the stone is, but that doesn't work. So he reveals himself as Koopa and brings them to the de-evolution chamber to attempt to threaten them into handing it over. He reveals to the brothers that the de-evolution chamber can de-evolve beings into their previous species, making them more loyal and stupid. And he uses the chamber on Toad as a demonstration, transforming him into a Goomba, and this has to be my favorite scene in the movie.
Goomba! Yeah. Walk tall! Hey yo, what the f? Go Goomba!
Okay, so pause the movie and let's take a step back. Here we are in a parallel dimension that looks nothing like the Mushroom Kingdom or Dinosaur Land. And up to this point, the only recognizable thing is Mario and Luigi. How did this happen? So this all started in 1991 when film producer Roland Joffe had a meeting with Minoru Arakawa, the president of Nintendo of America at the time. He pitched the idea of a Super Mario Bros. Movie, which was crafted at his production company, Lightmotive Studios. And as you can imagine, this wasn't the first producer to approach Nintendo, since everyone knew who the Mario Brothers were at this point in the 90s. The idea is that the movie would have served as true events that would eventually inspire the game that Nintendo would go on to create. Arakawa liked the pitch, and what was presented in the boardroom that day was wildly different from the result. So Jaffe went as far as Kyoto to meet with the president of Nintendo himself, Hiroshi Yamauchi, to stick the landing with the film. And somehow Nintendo would agree to sell Jaffe the rights to a Super Mario Bros. Film for $2 million, while Nintendo would keep the rights over the merchandise for the film.
Oh my god, what is that?
So keep in mind, at this point, Jaffe was a 2-time Academy Award and Golden Globe nominee for Best Director on previous films. And while he had no intention to direct, I would say he had some decent credibility where Nintendo believed in his vision. Unfortunately, Jaffe struggled to find a director. Attempting to recruit Harold Ramis, who starred in Ghostbusters and directed Groundhog Day, which came out February of 1993, a few months before this actual film. Ramis would turn the offer down, so Greg Beeman would be the first official director for the film, but at some point, Jaffe didn't think he was a good fit and dropped him from the project. Meanwhile, the script was also in turmoil. Barry Morrow of Rain Man fame initially stepped in to write a darker and more grounded script. Morrow's script was revised by several different writers, and at least 5 full drafts were created in a 6-month time frame, with one focusing on a fairy tale fantasy story based around the idea of the Wizard of Oz. And seeing some of the concepts that came out of pre-production, it looks like they were going to go for something much closer to the Mushroom Kingdom initially. Jaffe would finally settle on husband and wife director duo Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, who were best known for creating the Max Headroom character back in the 80s. Slightly off topic, this character is a little before my time, but I mainly know him for that incident where a guy in a Max Headroom mask managed to hijack 2 channels. Go look that up, it's quite unnerving, but really interesting at the same time. Anyway, with Morton and Jankel as the new directors, it would be their idea to incorporate Dinohattan rather than going with anything that looks like the actual video game. The goal was to do with Mario what Tim Burton did with Batman, and from this point on, the dominoes continued to fall. Weeks prior to filming, Disney purchased the distribution rights to the film, which led to a slew of rewrites. So by the time filming began, it was an absolute disaster for the crew. They filmed a majority of the scenes in an empty cement factory in Wilmington, North Carolina, which you can tell had existing stairs and walkways that were left in as elements of Dinohattan.
The design sort of evolved out of the existing shapes and structures because they don't move.
John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins famously made a habit of drinking between takes to cope with the stress of the project. It got so bad to the point where Leguizamo was driving their Super Mario Bros. Van drunk and accelerated too fast, which caused a sliding door to slam on Bob Hoskins' finger, breaking it in the process. Hoskins had gone on to recall that he'd been stabbed at least 4 times, electrocuted, and nearly drowned on set. In addition to all that, Leguizamo himself said the directors kept trying to insert new material, shooting scenes with strippers and other explicit content that eventually were edited out.
That whole disco scene, they hired a whole bunch of strippers from Wilmington to be in the scene, and they were too scantily clad because this was it was a children's video game, and that was conflicting for everybody. It was not an easy shoot because the ladies wanted to reveal everything and they couldn't.
Dennis Hopper also reached his limit with the terrible direction and was reported to have exploded on set, yelling at the directors about their unprofessionalism for 45 minutes. Morton and Jankel cut for lunch to try and calm him down, leaving behind over 300 extras on set waiting for hours for the next scene.
My 6-year-old son at the time, he's now 18, at the time he said, Dad, I think you're probably a pretty good actor, but why did you play that terrible guy, King Koopa, in the Super Mario Brothers? And I said, well, Henry, I did that so you could have shoes. And he said, Dad, I don't need shoes that bad.
Richard Edson and Fisher Stevens, who play Spike and Iggy respectively, weren't too fond of their characters' lines either, and ended up winging it during filming, knowing that the movie was such a mess no one would correct them on the script. Edson had said in interviews that this made filming the movie more enjoyable for him. So as you can see, a majority of the crew did not have the best time filming this movie, and have all done several interviews since then looking back at the project as a disaster, some more positively than others.
I had a lot of fond memories. We had a lot of great times doing that.
Bob Hoskins was quoted in 2007 saying, "It was a nightmare. The whole experience was a nightmare. It had a husband and wife team directing whose arrogance had been mistaken for talent. After so many weeks, their own agent told them to get off the set. nightmare. And Hoskins is not wrong. Morton and Jangle were asked to step away toward the end of the project, and the production companies had to come in and help wrap everything up. So if the pacing feels off or some plot points feel rushed, it's because this is the combination of at least 5 different scripts.
3 hours later.
Mario and Luigi managed to ambush Koopa in the de-evolution chamber and use the opportunity to escape captivity, which leads to this crazy car chase through Dinohattan, complete with highly exaggerated exploding police cars. They managed to make it out alive to the Koopahari Desert, which is a reference to Desert Land in Super Mario Bros. 3. Apparently they had much bigger plans for Mario and Luigi's time here. Like one of the earlier scripts was going to have a Mario Golf inspired scene. This would be revised in a later script to a Mario Kart inspired scene with a Mad Max death race type of vibe to fit the darker tone of the movie. So instead of these scenes, the movie cuts back to Daisy's perspective where she meets Yoshi, who turns out to be Koopa's pet dinosaur.
Go ahead and say it. Dinosaur. Yoshi is a pet of the royal family. You may pet him.
Koopa goes on a long tirade about dinosaur pride and tells Daisy she's also descended from the dinosaurs. And I'm pretty sure by this point they mentioned she's the daughter of the previous ruler, but I've been working on this for so long that it's all starting to mush together right now. But before I move on, what's going on with Yoshi here? I talked about this in my Yoshi video, but despite this being a more realistic approach to the character, I have to again give props to the effects team. Yoshi is an animatronic that was built by the team led by Patrick Tatopoulos, who would go on to work on the effects in the Underworld series, I Am Legend, and the Zack Snyder DC films. Dave Nelson, the lead engineer behind Yoshi, mentioned that they built 4 different versions of Yoshi to film with, and had a fully functioning animatronic that needed 70 cables and 9 operators. Yoshi alone contributed to $500,000 of the budget, but the puppet came out so well that even the producers from Jurassic Park were impressed, to the point where they considered recruiting the engineers. So even when he looks like this, everyone still loves Yoshi. Aww. So Spike and Iggy managed to track down Mario and Luigi in the desert, but they're easily overpowered and captured by the brothers. This leads to them making a deal to work together to get the rock back as long as they can guarantee Daisy's safety. So the duo help the brothers get back to Dinohattan so they can head to Boom Boom Bar to retrieve the rock from Big Bertha. Spike and Iggy are actually Koopa's cousins in the film, but the names I think are a little bit strange since they got Iggy from one of the Koopalings, but Spike is just a normal enemy within the games. Without much setup, they're revealed to be anti-Koopa the whole time, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss this moment.
To the downfall of Koopa.
The sooner, the better.
I know King Koopa doesn't exactly treat them the best, but there are no hints or foreshadowing leading to this twist in the first place. Now Big Bertha, who they're attempting to retrieve the stone from, is a reference to the massive Big Bertha fish from Super Mario Bros. 3, which also kind of feels like a stretch. After an extended dance scene between Mario and Big Bertha, he manages to retrieve the stone, and as the Goombas close in on them, she helps them escape the bar. They can now head to Koopa's tower to retrieve Daisy and save the day. And finally, they get their plumber outfits.
Look, look, look.
Wait a minute, their mouths aren't even moving. What the... Oh, this is why you shouldn't dissect the movies you enjoyed. I still love this scene. They manage to find Daisy, who tells them that all the girls kidnapped from Brooklyn are being held in the tower as well. So Mario runs off to save these damsels in distress. And all of this leads up to the final act with Mario leading the women to safety and having his last standoff with Koopa. Meanwhile, Koopa's lover, Lena, played by Fiona Shaw, makes off with the stone and tries to merge the worlds herself, but gets promptly clapped in the process. But the damage has already been done. Luigi and Daisy are unable to stop the merging, so Mario and Koopa end up back in Manhattan. Oh look, and it's our boy Scapelli.
Monkey.
So before the merging can escalate, Daisy and Luigi manage to stop it and set everything back to normal, which sends Mario and Koopa back to Dinohattan, where they finally finish him off with a de-evolution gun, turning him into primordial slime. With the day saved, the king is returned back to normal from his fungus form, and Daisy chooses to stay behind in her home while the plumbers go back to Brooklyn. Everyone goes back to their normal lives until Daisy charges through the door and invites them on another adventure, setting up for a potential sequel. But wait, there's an end credit scene that shows 2 Japanese men pitching a video game concept to who we assume is Mario and Luigi, but it turns out to be Iggy and Spike, who asked the game to be called the Super Koopa Cousins. This is a cute scene, but I can't imagine anyone thinking to stay after the credits for this film. So there you have it, the Super Mario Bros. Film. Alright, so how did everyone respond to the release?
Yeah, this movie wasn't imagined correctly at the outset. They didn't start out with a vision of what it was going to be even before they did everything else. And so you look at the movie and you see millions of dollars on the screen of special effects and all of those customized cars and that other world that they've created and everything else. And it doesn't add up to anything. It's just a lot of people running around, all talking at once in a plot that nobody cares anything about.
I'm sure no one is surprised to hear it was received negatively. Most critics at the time agreed that while the movie had great set design, effects, and the acting was decent, it had a poor grasp of the source material, and the writing left much to be desired. It only managed to gross around $21 million domestically, which was only about half the budget of the entire production. On top of that, the movie was in theaters only 2 weeks prior to Jurassic Park, which would become the biggest film released that year. The poor reception to this film and the nightmare that the crew experienced on set had a lasting effect on those that were involved. The directors Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel would never work on a film again, going back to directing commercials and music videos. Nintendo would also choose to avoid doing anything movie related until they finally stepped up to make 2019's Detective Pikachu, which, to put it in perspective, was 26 years later. But in regards to the movie, Shigeru Miyamoto himself has been quoted saying, "The one thing that I still have some regrets about is that the movie may have tried to get a little too close to what the Mario Brothers video games were. And in that sense, it became a movie that was about a video game, rather than being an entertaining movie in and of itself." Nintendo was being asked about the movie all the way up into 2017, with Reggie Fils-Aimé, former Nintendo of America president, saying that the film left a really bad taste in the mouth of their developers. Looking at some of the earlier scripts though, there's a lot of interesting scenes and plot lines that were eventually cut. For example, Daniela was originally supposed to be the younger sister of Scapelli, which would have given more reason for Mario and Scapelli to be adversarial to one another. I think in the actual movie they only have one scene together. And if you go way back, you'll even find early scripts that have Mario and Luigi going to the Mushroom Kingdom instead of Dinohattan, and they go there on a quest to save a princess named Hildy from Koopa. This is the version of the script that seems pretty close to the game. They even kill off Koopa in a pool of lava at the end of the script. Toad was also supposed to have a much larger role in the film, serving as a guide for Mario and Luigi when they first arrive in the other dimension. In fact, the Goomba character we see in the film was originally a separate character from Toad named Hark, that would have eventually helped the Mario Brothers and Daisy in stopping King Koopa. So if you decide to watch or rewatch this film, keep all of that in mind and the pacing of the film starts to make a lot more sense. Also, what happened to that merchandise that Nintendo kept the rights over? Well, in Japan, there's a full one-shot manga for the film called Super Mario Makai Tekoku no Megami, translating to Super Mario Goddess of the Demon World Empire, which is also the name of the film in Japan, by the way. It's only 34 pages, but it can serve as an abridged version of the movie's story. It has some pretty glaring differences, like Daisy already knowing Mario and Luigi from the start, but it skips all the movie setup that I complained about earlier, and starts with Daisy asking the plumbers for help at the dig site to fix flooding water pipes. Daisy's kidnapped while they're fixing the pipes, and the events play out similarly to the movie. If nothing else, I do love this art style. But if you're truly one of the kids that enjoyed this movie, they had toys like talking Mario Brothers figures, a Devo chamber, one of those weird police cars, a de-evolution gun, and even trading cards. And it's funny because these trading cards feature a still from a deleted scene where Spike and Iggy would have rapped at the Boom Boom Bar.
About our liberation, start a new confederation.
And if my ears don't deceive me, that sounds like an anti-Koopa rap, which would have given their betrayal a lot more context. So while all chances of a sequel were pretty much thrown out the window, there was an unofficial sequel webcomic that was published in 2013. They managed to get Parker Bennett, one of the original writers of the movie, to outline the story, and were publishing this comic up until 2015. It wasn't completed, but if you're interested to see what a sequel may have looked like, I'll link it in the description. So here we are, 30 years later, and finally Nintendo has decided to take another crack at the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This time, Shigeru Miyamoto is directly involved as a co-producer. And I know they're doing everything in their power to make sure this doesn't end up like the '93 version. Without even seeing this movie yet, it does look like Mario. And the visuals are amazing in the trailers that have been released up to this point, so I'm pretty confident this will be well received. But may we never forget the video game movie that started it all. I want to give big shoutouts to the Super Mario Bros. Movie archive for compiling all the scripts, behind the scenes shots, and all the other goodies that I used in this video. If you want to read some more on this, I would definitely head there first, link in the description. I want to thank you all for joining me on this journey back in time. Be sure to leave a comment on anything I may have missed, and as always, be safe. The Prophet has spoken.